Welcome everyone to the Scalable Cities Café. My name is Veronica Cerna. I'm from 20 Communications, and I'm going to be guiding you through today's session. We have a very exciting program ahead of us. Please do know that the session is being recorded and it will be then posted on YouTube and social media to promote it further to other stakeholders and other audiences. By attending, you are given the consent to have your voice, your questions, to be further disseminated across these channels. Please sit back and enjoy. We're going to guide you through the innovation procurement today. The Scalable Cities Cafés are engaging sessions that we want to have with you, with our audiences, as an interactive session that should help you learn from experts, engage in discussions, and exchange ideas on each one of the topics that we are going to present. We have our experts here today. They're going to be talking about innovation procurement and how cities can drive innovation and sustainability through good and effective procurement strategies. A bit about Scalable Cities. This is an initiative by the European Commission that gathers smart city experts that want to support the Smart Cities and Communities project to create a sustainable, innovative, and citizen-led community of smart cities in Europe and beyond. They're working all together towards replicating these projects across European cities and to create a true large community that shares knowledge, expertise, and works towards climate neutrality in Europe. We have started as a group of smaller projects. There were 18 projects gathering 48 lighthouse cities and 72 fellow cities. Already then, they have contributed to more than 52% energy savings. The projects have looked at implementing 5,200 e-vehicles, 17,500 smart meters, more than 1 million square meters of floor space refurbished, and more than 260,000 citizens engaged. These projects have been now expanded through various other programs through Horizon Europe, and are currently counting 8 more projects that are more focusing on PCEDs and their development. This is an expert community that actually wants to share their knowledge with you. As a part of that, the Scalable Cities is operating a so-called expert program, and that is why we have the 2 experts here. We have Andrea Geyer-Scholz from Smart Cities Consulting and Damian Wagner-Herold from Urban Dynamics that are going to be talking about innovative procurement. They are currently working on a study that they would like to share with you the introductory findings, and they would like to also get your feedback. As I said, this is an interactive session, so please do not hesitate to raise your question, raise your hand, ask what is interesting, or ask our experts if they can help you with your problem in your city. The meeting will be recorded, and there is going to be a Q&A at the end. We're going to also provide a PDF version of the presentation and the recording afterwards on the website. So you are giving the consent to actually participate in this by attending the session. To start, Andrea and Damian, can you please first introduce yourselves and then give me a bit more of an overview of why did you select innovation procurement, and why is it so important and interesting for cities today?
Okay, good afternoon to all. I would take this up first. My name is Andrea Geyer-Scholz. I'm based in Vienna for Smart Cities Consulting. And we were keen to work on the innovation procurement expert topic because procurement has a great role to also to spark innovation in incumbent fields or in just established fields. The other thing is that public procurers, so public bodies, can play a leading role in driving innovation by that. But we found out that it's basically more than that. And especially when you talk about building renovation, you see that it's scattered over many landlords, and so it's not a public task, but it's more also a private tasks. So, and then public bodies have a role in being a sort of a moderator or driving the process from the defining the problem instead of going for the solution first. So that's one of the main things in innovation procurement, that you don't run for the solution, but you describe your problem with all the hardships coming along.
And procurement is or should be always a tool for collaboration. My name is Damian. I've been working in the field of smart cities for about 10 years now. And over the years became really clear, that of course you need a lot of collaboration, especially with startups, small SMEs, innovative companies. And public procurement can be a showstopper, or it is in most cases a showstopper, but it can also be an opportunity for great collaboration. And that makes this topic quite interesting, especially in times where we need a lot of products we don't even know about yet how they will be shaped or look like or modified.
So this is the status of some of our work we did already. So we looked at the procurement project in Horizon 2020, and in Horizon 2020, these is represented by the gray bubbles in the figure. And in Horizon 2020, the topic was taken up by the Commission, but it was put in an own pillar. And not now it's more habitat over the diverse clusters and societal challenge fields. And at that time, it's maybe a bit academic. They had two big points. The one was PPI, so public procurement of innovation, and the other was PCP, pre-commercial public procurement. It begins to blur now overall, but they have in common that you are always in a lab situation. You are always the guinea pig, because if you source innovation, you can't rely on thousands of installed base and such thing. But you also take as a procurer a bit of a risk. And this is something that is loathed by public authorities usually. So it has a certain risk of failure, and of course also of loss of money or not being successful. And this is something which is not very favored in that respect. And pre-commercial procurement goes even a step behind, further or before. Because there is considerable research and development work to be done. So this is really formulating what is bothering you and what really the problem is, without pointing at a solution and waiting what's coming back, and having this assessed and developed, and then implemented and piloted and prototyped in your city, area, whatever it is.
Thank you, Andrea. What I would like to understand a bit more, we have seen that there is an innovation ecosystem across the project, and a lot of the projects are piloting innovative solutions. Is there any way that cities can actually use procurement to drive such new innovations and new technologies? What role does the procurement play for cities in this aspect?
Yeah, let's maybe go a step back. Prior to this assessment, we did an assessment on upscaling PDs, business cases, and thereby ecosystems of cities as well. And the study, after all, and you can download it, was called Avoid the Pilot Trap, right? Because we piloting projects, public grant projects, they get money, and at some point they really have to go beyond and make this a sustainable solution. And in many cases, getting there is quite a big problem due to the lack of financing, due to the lack of operating models, service models on the business side. And besides this great opportunity of piloting projects and this program, one of the big showstoppers was, and all cities know about this, is really, you do a piloting project, you have good partners, the solution fits well, and then you have to go into public procurement, which in many cases, your startup, your maybe SME, they don't fit the conditions, or they have to face competition from huge companies and huge resources. And this has been one of the, as I mentioned before, one of the main showstoppers to working together, basically. And that's what I meant before. And if we really want to create an ecosystem which in a sustainable operates and implements the solutions we are prototyping, we are testing, we need a lot of partners. And these partners can be involved in innovation procurement process, such as the PCP. The PCP is basically a prototyping process, and that's why it is such an important topic, and that's why it can be the glue instead of the showstopper, can be the glue of the ecosystem we have been creating over the years.
Thank you. A part of the ecosystem are not only the cities, but also the private sector and the startups and the SMEs that are actually implementing these innovations. So when we're talking about the pilot trap, we're not only talking about the cities, but also we need to take into account the private sector companies. You already started explaining a bit where the issues might be, or where the back stopping might be. But is there any benefit from innovation procurement, and what's in it for cities, but also for private companies?
Mm-hmm. I will start on that. So what's in? When we talk cities, we are talking very much about infrastructure or long-term investments. So we are going to the future, or we are trying to plan the future, and the future is always insecure. So we can't tackle challenges of the future with yesterday's solutions. So it's important to go really beyond the state of the art often, and to go into this insecurity and say, hey, we need some new ways to tackle this. So this is just to make sure what is the core competence of a city or of a public community. So this is public services, yeah. So this is about mobility and security and giving people shelter and education and health and so on and so on. So it's mostly not about and all activities are consequences of this core task that a public service has. So they can't do everything on their own. And on the other hand, and this depends very much on the culture and also on the size and the resources and the capacities in the city, they can drive innovation and even R&D towards a certain point. but then they have to let it loose and to have it operated and scaled. And this is where private sector partners or actors come into play, as subcontractors, as licensees, whatever. And then this tackles also an important point that is often neglected. That's about intellectual property and intellectual property rights and handing them over. So we talked about PCP, so it's very much research even, and you don't have a mature product in the market, but you have to hand over at some point to other actors to drive the development further. And this is also an important part to consider. Who develops, who can take up, what are their roles, what are the consequences, and to make this even and fair for all players in the ecosystem and for all partners in this respect.
I mean, the challenge both sides, private sector and public sector, are facing in most times is that they don't know the solution yet, right? They don't even know how to describe the challenge. In many cases, it's hard to describe, what they want in the end, and due to the fact that there's a lot of digital products these days, and that's why PCP processes and comparable processes, they really focus on describing the problem and describing the challenge, learning from each other, and usually the public sector describes it in for their own, and then at some point they publish the tender, and the private sector steps in. And what most innovative procurement process really do, they do in a call it co-creative process, collaborative process. They really raise understanding for each other. And in the end, if you look how many public tenders, public procurement fails in the end, or they're very costly mistakes. You start your data platform. I have that case in the city I work here. Completely wrong way, and you lose €1 million on it, because at some point you understand you realize that it goes completely the wrong way. So I really think it not only saves resources on both sides, but also our taxpayers' money, because we can be from the beginning very clear and to address the real problem by a good tender.
Yeah, I think savings are a key benefit of improving the whole procurement system. So for sure. We talk a lot about some kind of negative aspects of the cases that you are looking at, and we've mentioned already a couple of cautions. But I would like you to think about the research that you are doing and think about some success stories. Is there something that already stood out across these examples of either projects or the cities that have implemented the innovation procurement? And could you mention some good really stories that we could all learn from? And look into also what is it that made it stand out? Like, why was that different and why was that a success?
Damian, you want to start?
I mean, we actually got a very good example from the Lighthouse projects. Actually, the project I coordinated, Triangulum, and I'm quite sure we did one of the first innovation tenders, at least within the program. And what we did in Eindhoven is we started we had to, in the end, it was called ICT tender. We wanted to make it a funding, innovation fund, which due to cascade funding wouldn't have been possible, made it a tender, and in the end, a competition. There was a new district, huge district, former headquarters of Philips, and the city was looking for solutions of different kinds. And they did this startup competition, starting with the first round. They got like €5,000 to prototype, which is not a lot, but at least. And then the 3 winners got, I think it was another 25,000 euros to implement it and become a customer. In some cases, the first customer. And this was like about wooden bikes. One startup provided an acoustic sensor to detect whether there's trouble somewhere in the district. And this is basically how most tenders or competitions, such the one in Leipzig you have or in Munich, what they were based on. And what we really learned from that one is that you really need this prototyping process, because you have new, immature products, you don't know how to work with each other. And that in the end was a great success. And actually the startups working in Stripe S with the city, they again get more projects out of it. And that's, to me, in a very early stage, but very good example already. But we should not forget, and also mentioning good competitions like the one in Munich or Leipzig, but they, in the end, they don't implement full scale, right? They're rather procurement ones. So the big problem, so to say, or challenge is really, how do you get this into the implementation, right? And this is one of the big challenges we are looking at as well.
So this is one example, and then we found out from the project that I showed before, the gray bubbles. We've seen that there are considerable successful attempts, and mostly successful attempts, in Scandinavian cities. So there seems to be some sort of front runner spirit, maybe, or definitely spirit on it. And so AI for cities is one of the lighthouse projects in that respect. They also have a very strong process and built a funnel to come to a solution in the end, but starting with a rather low threshold and low level idea gathering on the main topics they gave, because it was only about energy and mobility and so. So this is one thing what we've seen. Then we have seen that especially for cities not that strong with their own resources and also capacities, the networks we mentioned could be very helpful. And I want to contribute an example from the other way around, from one of the strong cities that led even to sort of a startup derived from that. So in Vienna, the people running the sewage system, the famous Viennese sewage system, I think it was even an in-house invention, because this department decided to use the sewer for distributing fiber optics along the city, because you need not dig up the ground, and you don't have traffic congestions all the time and so on, and people are annoyed. And for doing this, they invented sort of a robot for installing it, and it's patented, and I think that but this is a city with a strong capacity also in own R&D. And then they sourced out they licensed out the IP on that, so it was installed in Vienna, and it was good for Vienna. But they licensed it out, and there came for this license a new startup was built, marketing the solution with fiber optics in sewage systems, automatically installed by a robot and so on. They made business in other cities around the world with this system. So this is the other way around, sort of. And they have not only city, so public customers in the cities, but also, companies like network carriers using or having their own fiber infrastructure done, and they used the system. So it was also an interesting perspective of where public engagement can lead to.
And do we have time for another example, or should we?
We have all the time you want.
Within 30 minutes. Very good. As you know, there's a huge German smart city program which has learned from the European program to some extent, and one of my favorite innovation procurement projects really is the innovation engine in English in Ulm, small city, top 10 smart city in Germany. It was just awarded, but small city, 130,000 inhabitants. And the challenge we had in Ulm was really, we want, most of the solutions, they came from startups. We wanted security in one of our smart districts. And most of those came from startups, AI startups, etc. So we set up a startup innovation competition, which included a prototyping process, and the 3 winners of the first round, they got 25,000 euros to develop their solution. And this then, transferred into a full-scale procurement process. To the public and to the startups, it was a competition, but in the back end we made it a proper procurement process. So in the end, the AI startup which did like digital AI surveillance in the area, that won, they not only got a check for 100,000 euros, they also got a letter from the procurement department that they had awarded this process. And this alone makes it very special and hasn't happened much, at least in Germany. And the second part was really that we put a lot of effort into the communication. Veronica, I don't have to tell you it's important, but what we did from the beginning, the entire process, we did the branding, storytelling, and that led to some helpful events, such as the data protection people from the country, from the city. They all, hold their hands and said, hey, cameras, AI, and the people that wanted to save the butts because of the light, they all raised their hands and could be part of the process. And I think if we talk about ecosystem, it's about, getting the what can we do attitude into it, and not the no, we can't do it. It's in Germany, data protection is a pain in the city, even more than others, and that's how we made it a very successful process after all, including also local companies and so on. And I just came out of a meeting with the federal police today, which they read about it, and now everybody's sitting together how we can scale it up somewhere else. And this is very small scale. 100,000 euros is not much, but it is a big step in innovation procurement. And I think this is a good example how you can activate your ecosystem, really untap the potential, and get some proper products out of it that help the private sector as well.
Can you reflect on the project and the examples that you have given, and what you are looking at, and give us some key points on how to actually make these processes more efficient and effective?
Not at the moment right now, because you've seen we were in projects, and project is some effort on top for exploring the whole thing. So that's one thing. And then maybe there is also a little advantage for smaller cities with not that much resources, because they need to be more efficient in the process as well. And they don't have a big legal department having a field day by finding all the nitty-gritty things in legal frameworks. And so I think this is a question that we should postpone to the next round of the cafe, or maybe in Barcelona, or then we will point it out in the study as well. So this is my take in the moment. I don't know what Damian has to say on. But I
is setting up some of this innovation procurement process myself. Standardization. It's incredible how little standardization even within cities there is. And as in, take templates, take procedures, and you always have to, and over the years, this, procurement processes, public ones, they have become a space of fear, because cities are super, or public sector is super fearful of failing or somebody suing them. And it's happening. So there's a reason for it. And there's a big industry that benefits from it. You have to say it as well. I think cities should, and this is what the innovation procurement process, PCP processes really addresses, should focus much more on describing the challenge, maybe having processes with citizens, with the private sector to do so. I think this could save, and this is not, this takes more time up front, but will save you a lot of resources afterwards. I think this is something I've seen quite a lot. And then it's quite simple. As a city or public sector organization, you have to be brave and just do it. And if you have people in the public procurement that do so, and there's always ways to do it, it's great. If not, nothing will happen. So cities have to be brave, and cities have to think a bit more like businesses, as in these development processes.
I really like that cities have to be brave. That's a very nice way of putting it. But you've already also mentioned, Damian, that it's good to start with the procurement already from the beginning of the process and from setting it up. Do you see that the early integration of innovation procurement is really affecting the overall outcome? Or is there also a way of kind of jumping into the hamster wheel a bit later, once already everything is rolling?
I just what I said before, I think these prototyping and in Ulm we did 10 months from ideation to implementation, right? So we did a 3-month living lab, whatever you want to call it, real labor, there's the prototyping whatsoever, and that is the process where cities really can give a hand, be sparing partner, help with the right partners within institutions, because it's just, cities are a black box to everybody outside, decision making, who's responsible for what, etc. And I think these prototype or pre-commercial procurement, as one example, those processes are a great chance to cities to be a sparing partner and support whoever could be their partner, and also to make sure that this will not explode after the procurement process or something like that. And we found out so many things that don't work. It's incredible, and some startups, they dropped it, they got a lot of money, but they said we can't do it perfect, because they are not, if they will not be the ones with a nice application, and then you figure out, oh, they can't do it, So it's brilliant. This learning curve is on both sides, and city administrations have to learn how to cope with it as well.
I think as well that you can't start early enough, because especially when you can resist by going for a solution first, So we have so much waste, we need an incinerator. No, maybe incineration is not the solution. Maybe it's also the causes are different on that. So really describing a problem and saying, hey, this is what bothers us, and we don't have the time, or we don't have the money, or we don't have ideas how to do this. is one thing, but then it must be clear for all actors in the process where this shall lead to, yeah, and that there will be consequences and there will be some sort of implementation. And then this is, I mean, it need not be public procurement in a sense that really the public authority buys something, but maybe they only moderate the process that the community comes to a solution, and somebody else implements the solution and operates this, yeah. But so also the operation needs to be considered. What do we do when we have it? What is the concept? Do we have to double our personnel, or do we even have the right people to deal with it afterwards? So it's also terms of capacity, and also cities and regions don't have infinite people and infinite capacity with their people.
Yep. I would like to ask Andrea a bit more about that, because I find it very interesting when we talk about the iterative process and the prototyping and including the innovation procurement already from the start. Do you see any effect or any benefit from codifying the innovation procurement into any of the planning documents of the city, or into kind of the city strategy? Does that help kind of push that forward, or is that then creating even more bureaucracy?
That's definitely a hazard, that there is even more bureaucracy about it. But it's maybe it's also like taking it nimble and looking at the threshold and having also in the monetary threshold as well, yeah, because you can make a real big fuss, and then in the end we are talking about 20,000 euros, to be very placative right now, but it, you know, you want to have something done at the end of the day, and it needs to be clear that somebody must solve it and must do it, and this needs to be paid in some respect. So it definitely pays off from the very beginning to also think about what are the business models, or what are the operating models, who will run the show afterwards. And then also, and this is also an issue to think about financing and financial schemes. And maybe then some operational problems or questions solve in itself, because with some sort of financial schemes, there comes some operational requirements or so, yeah. And then suddenly you don't have a public product or offering, but you have somebody offering some sort of public service for whatever reason. It needs to be transparent, and it needs to be comprehensible in the end for all involved. But there are more ways than just to say, okay, we want to buy it for the least money possible.
When I say cities have to be brave, of course, as a procurement officer, you get awarded for not having any trouble, right? So what you do is, to the smallest detail, describe what could, should, whatsoever, and then companies have to have a track record of 10 years, which excludes startups. You know, you want to make it as safe for yourself as well as possible. And so if you had an innovation procurement in Munich, it was smarter together, great stuff, but you know, the responsible officer, he said in the end he had like 400 pages again, you know, to be sure. And what we did here, we left some room to it, and that's why you have to be brave. You know, you have to leave it to the development process, and you don't put it all in your challenge description or something. And I think this is something. I mean, innovation procurement also needs to leave more room to maneuver, and that means less bureaucracy, less rules. I mean, it has to stay within the legal framework, but there is always room to maneuver. I think one lesson we learned, and we have to support cities in becoming more secure, so they don't have to be brave anymore.
We have to help the cities to be more secure in their insecurity. I think that's kind of the sum up of that.
Understandable. I think it's understandable, right? So
yeah. We talk a lot about the actual cases in the lighthouse cities or in the fellow cities that you are analyzing, but a lot of the scope of a lot of the projects, or the ultimate goal of all of these projects, is actually scaling up and replication.
Mhm.
When we're looking at what is actually implemented in a city, a specific innovation procurement process that you have, for example, described in Smarter Together in Munich, it's specifically adapted to Munich's needs, so to that city needs. How does that change when we want to scale that up, and what are the issues that come with it if you want to scale up, or if you want to replicate this in another city?
Standards. Damian mentioned it already. So it's a lot about standardization, and then also a sort of modularity, so that you are not forced as another city to take all or nothing, but also to pick a bit from, on the one hand, from the process, and then also from the solution. So if you think, for instance, about some great open source initiatives, and open source does not mean everything is free of money and free of responsibility and free of everything. So that's a big mistake often made. But for instance, if you think of the FIWARE initiative that a lot of cities could benefit from. And for instance, even with own personnel, so not by sourcing something out, but by taking something and adapting it to their needs, and then playing it back into the community, saying, hey, look what we did in wherever we are. And then another city can say, oh, that's exactly what we need. We don't need to change anything. So this can be a really nimble framework in that respect.
You mean open source framework, or what do you mean, Andrea?
Yeah, open source frameworks, but the mechanism of an open source framework, yeah, to really share. It's a sharing framework, and then, but on the other hand, or at the same time, make sure what the legal conditions are for this, what are the consequences are, and then to which conditions you can use it, and you can adapt it, and then you are free to choose to look at a big reservoir, and to choose from, so to stand on the shoulders from others, and then to see how you can use it for your own purposes. So this could be interesting, but I agree that this is a big hazard, that something is tailored really to a very specific city need and the legal frameworks there, yeah. Because this is also something that has to be considered. Some solutions or parts of solutions are just forbidden in other legal frameworks, and then it's a question whether the whole solution is obsolete for outside of the city, or that there are elements you can take and say you can adapt it, or you can put it to another solution framework, and save some efforts in that respect.
Yeah, so I mean, this is actually, as you know, Veronica, that's something we assessed in the last report. And what I've learned in 10 years innovation projects now is that one of the big challenges is really that you cannot start early enough to think about operations, which includes financing. So from the first minute on, you should ask the question, okay, who will operate? Who will pay for the maintenance? You know, everything that's not covered in the grant heaven, which you're in for 5 years. And I think if your product the view of the public sector is clear how it can be operated and how and who and how much it costs. I think it will be much easier to replicate it as well. But as we know, and Smart City has been a learning process, and same counts for the products and for the solutions. You always need, if you replicate something somewhere else, you need this prototyping. Again, you need this kind of prototyping process, right? And ideally, you would not have only, I don't know, 500,000 euros to do some replication and some workshops, but you would have some kind of replication, prototype, whatever process after to customize actually what you have. And I mean, but for a good reason, there's a framework of the funding and program framework. But this is really something you could address with the procurement if you, again, not only think about the operations from the beginning, but also how can this fit into or be part already, that's what we did. How could your pilot phase already be part of a procurement processes? And then you don't end up in a European tender, but maybe in a in a limited procurement process with your partners or something. And I think this is a lesson we learned as well.
Thank you very much. I'm trying to be a bit more cautious of the time, and looking at also our audience, I would like to perhaps ask if there's any questions that you would like to have to our experts, or perhaps also Damian and Andrea, you had some questions to our audience.
So do we have any cities? Because what we're talking about, everybody knows. I mean, everybody has to deal with that. It's not the most sexy topic, but one of the more relevant ones. So I would be interested whether there's any city who has been dealing with these kind of issues.
And which cities might be interested to share their experiences or their fears also in a lengthy discussion on a bilateral base with Damian and me in the course of our study. That would be really helpful. Raised hand.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, wait, let me just show myself. My name is Pedro Gomes. I work at Polis Network, so not for a city, but for a network of cities. So it's indeed some of the questions that you posed here are concerns from our members. I can mention two situations where I'm now recently involved. One is for a joint procurement program for vehicle-to-grid charging infrastructure. And one of the challenges, because a city alone cannot do this, because there's common standards, tools, and what we see is that there's already interesting in initiatives, especially in the Netherlands, because they are more advanced on electrification of fleets, for example, joint public procurement and common tools and templates. But still, there's still a big gap between Northern and Southern and Eastern Europe. So this is indeed something that we see in our membership. There's more advanced cities. We try to with our work to bring that knowledge, but it's really hard sometimes when there's such a different level of the process, where some cities are just starting the process of developing, for example, electromobility infrastructure, charging infrastructure, and others. So the communication, the language that they speak is quite different. So it's nice to see that this is also addressed here, and it's a common challenge. So again, I'm not from specific a city, but I just wanted to quickly provide the input from our side. Indeed, it's a topic. So the common standards on the procurement also, again, and this is not just about the big versus smaller companies or startups. It's also about sometimes also wanting to prioritize local and regional production. So we see that, for example, also with electric buses, where there's a procurement of these types of vehicles, but what happens is that sometimes Due to the size of these tenders and these processes, sometimes the European automakers or bus manufacturers cannot respond, where there's Chinese manufacturers providing these buses. But this also raises some safety concerns. This happens with smartphones, also happens now with electric cars, because they are basically very, very connected all the time. So
Yeah.
there's also the issue of data. But yeah, there's my quick input here, and thanks for this. It's really interesting and inspiring to hear you.
Yeah, thank you for your comment. And this is also a wide field, and maybe it's so this is a private opinion from me. So maybe it's also an issue about reframing. Yeah. So not saying, okay, you buy buses, but you have a youth employment program in mobility sectors or so, and then you can maybe structure projects in a different way. So, but this takes some thinking and collaboration, and maybe also not always gold that comes out at the first moment, but just to tailor and to develop, to co-create together in that respect.
Just to name some buzzwords.
Yeah,
but
yes,
it's true, of course. I was just always surprised how little standardization there is. And
Yeah.
I think this could be easy. We have an organization that supports cities on a free basis, I don't know, 10-hour basis, Coinno, and we talked to the CEO of it. It's a public organization that helps to support. And he really said there's just little standardization. Do you have 10 offices in the office, and then everybody does their own process kind of thing, and they're all different. And I think this could help a lot and make it comparable, and could help cities as well. But because I mean, I wouldn't want to be in their situation, right? Because still public money they're dealing with. But this is really something I thought about. Could be a solution, a project, to help to standardize, take a decision what process would be the best. And there's some nice trees already, which we will put in the report. You have a R&D product, or you have a product you don't know what it is whatsoever. Which way should you take? And then what templates could be the right ones? I feel this would already help a lot, at least in some cities.
Thank you very much. And do we have any other comments or questions from others on the call? So maybe if there's then no questions from the audience, I would like to ask you kind of the final sum up of your research. And I realize it's not finalized yet, so just for the preliminary kind of result as of this point, can you maybe tell us, Damian and Andrea, what are the kind of the indicators when you are looking at the city and when they are implementing the innovation procurement? What is it? What does it make successful, and what is it that is important to implement? We've heard a couple of the buzzwords, but maybe it's good and important to sum them up at the end.
That's okay. I will start. So I repeat myself: be brave, be collaborative, start early, think about how to operate and how to procure very early and how to finance early in the project. And well, with regards to our assessment, we're really looking at the opportunity. We know about the barriers, obviously, but we are really assessing a lot of good examples, and we're looking at the opportunities, and I'm very confident that by Barcelona we'll have even more good examples how it can work. And I think it is super important to showcase that it can work and how it can work. And that's a bit of our mission in this case as well.
So what we see and what I think really needs to be emphasized is the necessity to have a collaboration among stakeholders on eye level. So not only take the, it's public services, the city administration, or it's the enterprise, or it's some industrial association or something like that, but really interacting with each other on eye level and taking into consideration, go a mile in the other's shoes and see what you can really do together. And this is some sort of remedy for a lot of these hardships we face right now. And it's also interesting, for instance, to engage civil society associations or something like that, because they are often sort of on the one hand, they are often the enemy, or they are the sovereign, but they also shall see what's driving these processes, and that it's all what it's all for. It's all for better life in the regions and in the municipalities. And that's the core goal, and this is a task not for one group, but for all of them. No? So that's something, and to implement this in the processes as well.
Thank you very much, Andrea. You have literally created the best bridge for me ever, because it's to create a better life, or how to live better, is the key topic of this year's Smart City Expo World Congress in Barcelona, an event that we have mentioned already a couple times in the cafe. That is where you can also meet the experts in person on the 7th of November between 12 and 2:30 at the booth D81 in Hall 2, where we are going to continue the conversation, where you can, of course, join us with input, insights, and more comments or questions you may have. Otherwise, I'm going to thank our two experts on innovation procurement, Andrea Geyer-Scholz and Damian Wagner-Herold. Thank you very much for this very exciting and interesting conversations, and for your insights. For our audiences, stay connected. You can find us on the links below. And you will also be able to find the recording across our website and social media channels. Thank you very much, and have a nice day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.